It's the Fantasy Commissioner Show.
Yes, this is the Fantasy Commissioner Show, the show for commissioners by a commissioner. I am Reginald James, the commish. Join the discussion by posting on the live feed here at Rabble TV, or hit me up on Twitter at MR Reginald James, or you can send an email to the commish show at outlook.com. Hey, folks. Wow, we're back. I miss football. Seems like it's been forever. So we're back for season 2 of the FCS, the Fantasy Commissioner Show. Welcome back, fellow listeners who were with us last year. And if you're listening to this podcast for the first time, welcome. Come sit for a while. Join us here on the live feed here. We have create a discussion, have a discussion. Tweet your comments or questions. So, hey, let's get rolling, folks. So if you're a new listener, you might be wondering, okay. All right, fine. You've been tweeting about it all week. I have. I've been trying to get people to come listen to this podcast. I have. So come on, what is this? What is this Fantasy Commissioner Show? What is this business? Okay, well, this is where I sit down each week, and I look to help fantasy football commissioners. Football, not baseball, not basketball, and not NASCAR. Just football. I am a fantasy football player. I am a fantasy football commissioner, and it's like, it's gotten bigger and bigger each year. That's pretty much obvious to most of you. Well, not necessarily. There's always going to be new people, and the numbers are increasing each year. So I come across so many people who, I come across some folks who they like being commissioners. That's cool. But I come across so many others who they just hate being the commissioner of their league. It's usually not what they thought it was cracked up to be. Oftentimes, they express that it's more work than they thought it was going to be. And it's hurting and corralling and dealing with people more than they thought, because all of a sudden, these people who were so nice to you before, your friends and family members, all of a sudden can suddenly become antagonistic and threatening to your life force. It's weird, but it happens. It can happen real quickly, And some people, they got stuck with the job. They work in an office or wherever, your place of work, wherever that happens to be, right? Or then you have someone who, it's going to be nice. I'm going to get all my brothers from Talgama New, and we're going to have a fantasy football league, or my sorority, or the guys that I played Ultimate with, or whatever, right? And they have the best of intentions, and they're hopeful, and everything seems so promising, like springtime, right? It could be for a number of reasons. But the stories come, and I don't like to hear those stories. So it's my self-appointed mission, my goal, to help commissioners, to help them enjoy what they're doing. Okay? Why? I don't know. I do know. I love football. Professional football, to be exact. I love watching professional football. I coach football. I coach youth football. Let's be more specific about that. So fantasy football it's like the icing. It's like the gravy for me. So if fantasy football didn't exist, I'd be okay. I'd be just fine. I'd be okay. In fact, I've almost come around in a complete circle, way back starting in the Paleozoic period, when I just couldn't get enough. I was in multiple leagues, did the pick'em games straight up, the pick'em games with the spread, the salary cap leagues, you name it. I mean, especially with when the internet, actually started to grow, I would go to the local newspapers and I would do the pick'em game from the Detroit Free Press and the San Francisco Chronicle Gate, and just insane. So, I'd be up on and of course, I wouldn't do stuff through the week because I'm waiting for the information, the latest information, the injury reports, that sort of thing, right? So what am I doing Saturday night? I'm spending I'm spending hours, getting everything prepared for Sunday, right? So for me, the problem with doing all this stuff, all these games, especially the multiple leagues, the fantasy leagues themselves, I just got burnt out. I started cross-rooting against myself. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about, which is where you may have a quarterback in one league, and your opponent has that quarterback in another league. So you're in another league in that, and your opponent has your quarterback in your League A. So you find yourself in a situation where you root. You find yourself in a situation where you're going to root for your quarterback. Let's say Aaron Rodgers, right? So if he does really well in the other league where your opponent has him, you're rooting against him. I mean, you certainly don't want him dropping, a 5-banger on you, right? Or do you? Because you need him to win for you in your office league. Now, that's just one player. Multiply that by 3, 4, 5 players. Across what? How many leagues? 4 leagues that you're in? 5, 6? No. I couldn't handle that anymore. Couldn't do it. And I found myself being in the worst of moods on Sundays. We call that the fantasy funk here on the FCS. In the worst of moods. All grumpy and and upset and just not enjoying the games. Sitting there with all the screens in front of me, and I'm just like, I just wasn't happy. And you know what? That's crazy. It's crazy. And what was crazy about it, the worst thing about it, was that this is my favorite sport. Hands down. And I'm sitting here having like the worst day every week. Because when I am speaking for myself, of course, it's all right if you're in one league and you're just blowing people out and you're just like, yeah, I'm king of the world. But when you're in multiple leagues, that gets nullified. Because in the other league, you might not be doing so well. In the other league, it all starts to cancel each other out. So where is that glimmer of happiness? And then you start ranking the leagues. Well, this is the one that I had the most money in, and this is the one that, it's my family, so I'm not going to put that much time into that. So then you start, perhaps, not devoting as much time to what you would consider to be the lesser leagues. And why would you do that? So why would you be in a league that you're going to not devote a lot of time to just because you're in 10 of them? So for me, I had to downsize it, baby. Had to downsize what I was doing. So now, as a commissioner, I have to say, that I've had the best of time. And I started my league almost 20 years ago. And I did. There's this new listeners here to the podcast. You'll find that I will get in my little car and I'll drive off on a tangent for a while. So that's what I'm going to do here. This is an official tangent. But I did say my league. There's like this, I don't know. I don't know what the percentage is. I have no idea. I don't know if it's 50, 50, 60, 40, 70, 30. I don't know. But there's this camp where like, man, if someone ever says it's their league, I don't want to be in their league. It's not their league. How can they call it their league? Well, it is your league if you started the league and if you created the league and if you came up with the idea and you wrote the Bible, the Constitution, or whatever you did, because you should always put stuff in writing. You did it. You gathered the people. You collected them. You did the work. Like the league wouldn't exist without you. And I am not talking about the North Andersonville dental office where people have been there for years and people come and go and the commissioner kind of rotates because people get sick of it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone who sat down and go, you know what? I would just like to, man, this fantasy football, I don't even know what this is. Well, let me figure this out. You know, all right. Hey, Mac, you want to do this? Sarah, you want to play? Yeah, okay. And then you create your league. Well, it is yours. So anyways, I just had to address that real quickly because it is my league. And I mean, some people have a problem with that. And I'm not, I mean, not necessarily with me, just the language. I've seen that many a time. And I'll defend it. Because I started Care Paravel. That's what it's called. It's called Care Paravel. And we run on Yahoo. And the machine itself was actually on a site called Sandbox. And they did basketball. Like I did fantasy basketball and football on Sandbox. And I'm not sure. They might have baseball. I'm not sure. But Yahoo actually, you know, they existed as well, but they didn't have their own fantasy engine or whatever you want to say. So they bought Sandbox many moons ago. And, you know, so as a player, you know, I had that burnt out moment and it was just, you know, life sucked for a while. It's too schizophrenic. You know, it's too schizophrenic. So as a commissioner, though, for the most part, it's been great. You know, I had some itchy lessons to learn early on. And I feel that I've evolved with the game and with the technology. And if you stick with me this season, I hope you will, I will no doubt talk about the old days when I had to tally the scores myself after buying a copy of USA Today, and you know the scores didn't become official until like 3 a.m. on Tuesday, that sort of thing. Those were the days. But the point is, I feel that I can help folks enjoy being a good commissioner, or at the very least, help them do a good job and not get caught up in the classic drama and crap that tends to pop up in many a league. And, there's a lot of, the playing field has totally been equalized or leveled or since when I started, because now everyone has access to information, access to articles and blogs and television shows and radio shows. And so there's many resources and sources you have to help you, learn and get better and do the right thing. So no, I'm not the only one who's been doing this, but I am here right now to share what I know. And I'm still learning. I'll be the first to tell you that. But I'm here to share what I know and also to invite others to share their ideas, so we can have a happy community of fantasy football commissioners, so we can enjoy the sport that some of us thoroughly love. And, unless, you're stuck in the fantasy funk, and that's no fun at all. So each week, I'll answer your questions that I may have received via email, by Twitter. I also write a weekly commissioner Q&A for Fantasy Pros, fantasypros.com. where I answer commissioner questions. I do that as well, so check that out. I haven't started for the season yet, but I should do that soon. But you can also pull up past columns from last season. In fact, today I'm going to read some of what I consider to be the best of from last season because the questions were really good and the questions were good and the information is still relevant or evergreen. No matter the season, I think the information can still help people. You can learn a lot from other people's mistakes. You may think your problem is unique, and it very well could be. It very well could be. But chances are probably not, but you never know. So I'm hearing what's out there is my point, and I'll bring it here to you folks, and maybe each week we can learn a couple of new things or be entertained or perhaps both. How about that? And yes, I will talk about movies and music and other junk from time to time. The FCS is a well-rounded show. And we're fans of Brie Larson here. And I told you guys to go. That sounded creepy. Oh, okay. Let's rewind that. That sounded really creepy. We're fans of Brie Larson here. That's much better. All right, and I told you guys to go see Room. I told you, and how great Brie was, and okay. You see, I'll go off on non-football related items from time to time, so you have been warned. And yes, I will rant about the sham called the college football playoffs. Or maybe I'll just replay last year's rant. I might do that instead. I'll play it because it'll save me some time and energy from basically saying the same thing over and over again. Because man, I'm not going to say hate, but I don't like watching college football. That's another topic, another day, another place. Not really here. I don't think I'll ever really discuss it here. So, if you want to get into a nice convo, I don't know, email me and maybe I'll respond about that. I may watch it from time to time, though, very rarely, but when I do, it's for coaching. If I want to see a specific scheme or something like that I might not be able to catch in the pros. So I'll check something out for research, but it's from a very clinical standpoint, not because I'm not because I'm into what they're actually showing on the tube. Not my thing. Anyway, I won't be discussing college football here, not until the aforementioned rant that will undoubtedly fire me up once more when the stupid BCS talk crops up. Because they haven't changed anything, so I'm going to still bitch about it. We have until December for me to do that, though. So we have time. We have time. We have time before the bitch and moan session. You see that? See? I already spent more time on college football than it deserves. Done. Okay, so I mentioned the live feed, right? And so sometimes it gets busy. Sometimes I'm quite lonely and no one has anything to say. And then other times people will come in and they'll speak to me. Like Miss Matthews and Patty Doves or Pompano, my all-stars. Great folks, my all-stars from last year. It was awesome. Sometimes I had the best time because they came into the rabble room and they kept me company. And I big time appreciated that. They may show up. That would be nice. I hope they show up. And maybe someone will post another picture of Andrew Luck, in a bikini this year. Okay. Let me clarify. I'm not really asking for a bikini shot of Andrew Luck. For the record, I'm not. But I like when people visit the Rabble Room when I'm doing the show live because it's fun and I like the interaction. It's fun. And new folks, I'm telling you now, I dig it. Can you dig it? So come and make me happy. But yeah, okay. So the Andrew Luck bikini shot was actually it was a clever drop in reference to what we happened to be discussing at the time. It was a highlight of the season, I tell you. So of course, these podcasts are archived, so please listen when you can and get back to me any way you see fit. So I mentioned this before. Follow me on Twitter at mrreginald. Yes. It's my own Twitter tag. Follow me. It's at mrreginaldjames, and spread the word if you like what you hear. And by the way, feel free to check out, while you're there, check out my NFL teams list. I've compiled media resources, radio stations, beat writers. Kind of makes it easier to get the latest news on teams, the players. And I actually compiled the list for myself, actually, and then I decided to share. And I actually do use the list when I'm trying to get intel on my fantasy players, the beat writers. And the beat writers often beat the nets, the networks. They beat the nets like ESPN with breaking news quite often on game day, especially on game day. When you have to, who do I start? Who do I sit? And, trying to find out who's inactive and whatnot. So there you go. So you're like, oh, man, you're not talking fantasy commissioner stuff. You're just not. You're right. You're right. This is like my intro show for the new folks. So give me some space, man. Trust me, we'll get knee deep soon enough. So hang tight. So, yes, I'm happy to be back. And so here's a toast to a prosperous, or at least a fun fantasy season. Why don't we shoot for both? Because I didn't want to start too early. And if you're in one of those leagues who's already had a draft, I don't know why you would do that, but that's your choice. No judgment here. But since a goal of the FCS, the Fantasy Commissioner Show, is to help the new commissioner, I figured I couldn't wait too much longer to offer the set of rules. That's going to be the first series of things I do after this week. A set of rules that I think are really important for new commissioners to consider, or others. But I will always talk about the new commissioners quite often and constantly, because that's where it starts. And I think if you can start off on good footing, if you can start off with a good launch, I'm not saying things won't happen, but sometimes choices might be made that almost automatically jeopardize the inaugural season itself. So we're trying to fix that. And I figured right before training camp, because most camps are going to start in about 2 weeks, in the 20s, the week of the 20s. And I figured now would be a good time to hit up the rules and the tips, or whatever you want to call them, because have some people, you call them rules, everyone doesn't have to do what you say. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. I never said that. Okay, chill out. But I'm going to call them rules. So over the next, all right. So the next couple of podcasts, we'll be discussing the rules for having a happy fantasy league, or having a smooth running league, or the rules for maintaining your sanity as a fantasy football commissioner, right? Especially that when you're the one that's running it at the office, when you got stuck doing the job when you really didn't want the job, but no one else wanted to do the job, but now the people who didn't want to do the job are now complaining as if they could do a better job, then they should have volunteered in the first place, but they didn't, so now you're stuck. We're here to help. Here's the deal. So today is like our preseason warm-up quasi-review of lessons learned last year's show. So I'm going to fire through a bunch of questions to give you an idea of what we do here. Now, some of these questions are actually new, fresh, from our kitchen to yours since 2005. Fresh from our email, rather. The Commish Show at Outlook.com, by the way. And some of these questions I have actually addressed in my column, Commissioner Q&A at Fantasy Pros, like I said, I think the info or the topics, I think they're season proof. You'll see. You decide. Fair, you decide. I've tried to select questions, though, that have to deal with rules, league rules, because many of you, I would imagine, are at this moment or currently are thinking about the new ones or changing the old ones or just yanking or pulling some all together. And and before we go any further, this is in honor of season 1 of the FCS. The name of the Monopoly guy, also known as Mr. Monopoly, is Rich Uncle Pennybags. First name, Milburn. Do you know anyone named Milburn? Any of you? Anyone? I don't. And, by the way, did you know that the police officer's name is Officer Mallory? Did you know that? Did you? Did you? Oh, go to jail. Do not collect 200. And give me that phone. You have no use for it here. Ha ha. Hashtag loser. Okay, these are 5 rapid-fire questions, answers to questions that I see a lot, repeatedly, over and over again. Number 1, no, the league does not vote on trades. Only the commissioner, and only in the case of collusion. We shall talk about this once more at length this season. I think this is definitely one of those conversations that you should have every year of the Fantasy Commissioner Show. We did it in year 1. We'll do it again in year 2. Because this is one of those topics where commissioners often differ. They have difference of opinions on this particular topic. Who gets to vote on trades? Number 2, no. Just because you wouldn't do the trade doesn't mean it's collusion. Number 3, no. You do not make any changes to the rules once the season has started. Number 4, no. You do not reverse any waiver claims on a case-by-case basis. Emphasize to your league how important it is to read the rules. Read the rules. Read the rules. Number 5, user error is not an excuse for bad trades or bad waiver claims that you actually have remorse, buyer's remorse, waiver's remorse over, or draft picks gone wrong. I'm reading this one first because one of the rules we'll be discussing in the upcoming weeks is this. Business before pleasure, fantasy commissioners. Business before pleasure and family. Take care of your league business first, folks. No exceptions. Take care of your league business first. Now, new commissioners, listen up. Everything you do the first year should be done with the big picture, the future in mind. Duh, you say. That's what you just said to me, right? You know it. Admit it. You just went, duh. Okay. Am I stating the obvious? Am I? You'd be surprised how many people do the following. Commish. Right before our draft, I had someone drop out, so I asked a friend who had been asking to join for a while if they wanted to replace them. They wanted in but didn't have the pool fee at the time. I told them I would cover them and that they could pay me later. They haven't paid me. I've asked for the money a number of times, but now he acts like I'm harassing him. So now he's not speaking to me. His friend, right? His friend. So now he's not speaking to me, and I'm still out $70. I feel like I'm damned if I do. You know the rest. Suggestions? Yes. You're jammed. You're jammed. You're jammed, and you're damned. You are. You are damned if you do, and you are damned if you don't. And we call that jammed, because if your friend hasn't paid you now, chances are he's never going to pay you. He hasn't been acting honorably so far, so I wouldn't soothe the conflict by just letting him be. There's no need to heighten any drama. You don't want to push him to leave his team or dump players in protest. If he comes around, fine, but don't hold your breath. The only way you'll get some relief is if he wins. He'll just deduct what he owes from his winnings. Otherwise, let him finish out the season, and he doesn't get invited back. Commish, what's your take on position limits? We don't have them in our league right now, but it's something I'm considering for next season. We're a redraft league, and we have 6 bench slots. Now, this is one from last year, because I'm going to read the rest just so you have an idea what he's talking about. There's someone who has Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, and Derek Carr. Another guy has 4 running backs on their bench. I want to prevent managers from hoarding players. I don't think you should impose roster positions in your league. Roster position limits in your league. The setup you have is just fine. First, you have a redraft league, so obviously no one is stocking or hoarding players for the following season. Secondly, you have a small bench, which is why in your specific case, you shouldn't make any changes. A small bench prevents large-scale hoarding. Now, owners are then forced to make a choice when free bench space is at a premium. A small bench forces owners to keep only the players they deem the most important. It's often hard to stash a deep sleeper without jeopardizing the bench spot or a more valuable starter or handcuff. Bye weeks, well, you know the drill. They create additional pressure, putting management skills to the test. That's good for competition, if that's what you want in your league. Most importantly, each person, they have their own way of putting together a fantasy team. The way I do it might not be the way you do it. And they have their own favorite players, and they have their own position biases. Who they draft or who they pull off waivers and stash on their bench should be left up to them without any interference from the commissioner. So in your league, the owner who has 2 quarterbacks on their bench only has space for 4 other positions. Now, maybe you wouldn't carry 3 quarterbacks. It's something that I don't normally do either. I actually have in the past, but it's not a normal thing. So obviously, this particular owner sees some value in it. So in my opinion, that's what matters. He has the right to roster who he wants. And if someone chooses to limit their depth at the other positions, that's their call. Their strategy will either work for them or against them. So look at it this way. An extra quarterback taking up a spot on someone else's bench means 1 fewer running back or wide receiver or tight end or kicker. We'll just be all encompassing with this. They have roster spot available for those other players, right? 1 more running back or wide receiver available to everyone else. This came from Adam. He's a fellow commissioner. And he was asked by someone in his league why he doesn't have a co-commissioner. And Adam wants to know what I think about that and whether it's something he should consider. This is an evergreen topic and response. Because this comes up, every year. Every time there's a new league, sometimes someone wants to run it with someone else, or members of the league want 2 people to run it. And so I said it's an option that you as a commissioner might consider. And I understand the reasons why some might think it's a good idea. Okay, so let's discuss those. And then we'll talk about why I think it might not be a good idea. Or more specifically, why I don't do it. And I would never do it. It's not going to happen in my league and say if I, if and when, and if I do, and I do play in other leagues, if someone, asked me to be a co-commissioner, I would say, no. So on the pro list, reasons why you might want to have a co-commissioner. Number 1, checks and balances. You get to watch the watcher. That's the idea, right? The idea is that there is someone there to make sure that the commissioner does the right thing. That one person doesn't overstep or use their authority to indiscriminately change the rules or decide the draft order by pulling names out of a hat. That's in honor of Miss Matthews. With no one around, and you just have to take their word that it was all legit. Right? You know, all the things that shady commissioners do, or all the things that we're afraid of them doing. The idea is that no criminal hijinks goes down because there's someone there to keep it all in check. Checks and balances. Number 2, the co-manager would be there as a backup. They're there as a backup just in case the commissioner becomes unavailable. That's what I got. If you have any pros, send them to me, please, and we'll discuss this. We will discuss it. When I ask you to send your comments to me, I mean it, and I will read them on the air, and I will answer your questions. That's all I want, people. Onward to the con list. Number 1. Okay, so how do you pick a co-commissioner? It defeats the whole purpose if the evil overseer chooses his own replacement, right? So you're not going to let the highly suspect commissioner pick his right? So do you choose by vote? Okay, then what is the vote based on? What criteria? I'm throwing the questions out there because this is what you need to think about if you think that having a co-commissioner is something that you might want to do. What if the co that's voted in just happens to be close to the commissioner? Boyfriend, girlfriend, cousin, best friend, boss? Well, now you voted, right? Democracy rules. But now his best bud is his right-hand man. Now, how do you feel about that? You guys voted, right? So would that make the league feel better if the whole idea is to have someone who's supposed to objectively stand, watch, and keep the commissioner honest? Would relatives of the commissioner in the league be excluded from being co? How about the friends? Because we just talked about that, right? What about the lovers? We just talked about that. Think about that one. Number 2, does this mean that as commissioner, I can't make any decisions without checking in with the co first? Nah, I don't like that. Do you like that? You might. I mean, there are leagues with co-managers, so somebody likes it. But I'm like Mikey. No, I'm like Mikey's brothers. Only a certain set of you is actually going to get this one. But I'm like Mikey's brothers. I'm not going to do that. So, because what if they disagree? What if your co-manager disagrees with the rule change that you want to make? Right? Is that how much? Is that what co-managing co-commissioning means? So you're going to have to pass the rules by them? Or are they just going to monitor you for the season? Once again, we're going back to watch the watcher, right? So remember, league members, shouldn't vote on trades. That's the official position of Reginald James. So depending on how you fall on that position, so does the co get to say no to your trades? Well, I don't think they should. The same rule applies to them. They have no say on your trades, including yours. Trades don't happen in the Batcave. People are going to see what you do. That's your checks and balance. And that point expands over a wide range of topics when it comes to fantasy football. The lack of trust. The whole idea that you have to win trades. And I think we will definitely talk about that. It's funny. I mean, especially when money is involved, things get real itchy, And I think there's a lot of situations where, things don't have to be so suspect and people don't have to be so critical of the behavior and the movement and the machinations of the evil commissioner. Number 2 on the con list. Okay. Number 2. Having a co. Well, it is the opinion of the court that it's a big fat seed planted in fertile ground for mutiny, which you can have anyways, being a solo commissioner. There's a letter from Alex that I read last season, and man, he started this league with the best of intentions. And this letter made the rounds. I don't even know. It was on a bunch of sites and stuff. It just made the rounds because it was kind of sad because he was so excited, and then like his family and friends, they just turned on him. He got threatened and all this. So yeah, people can turn against you, but now they actually have an ally to go against you. Possibly, perhaps, the co-commissioner. What if the co-commissioner gets mad at you because you just broke up with his sister? Huh? Yeah. Like wallowing in that? You're not the president. You don't need a cabinet to run a fantasy league. You just need you. All right, so let's review the pros. That one person doesn't overstep. The idea is that no criminal hijinks goes down because there's someone there to keep it in check. No, wrong. I can still do whatever I want. I'm the commissioner of my league. Now, when I say I can do whatever I want, I don't mean I can change the rules willy-nilly and I can alter scores if it doesn't work out in my favor. That's not what I'm talking about. My point is I can still do whatever I want. I have the keys to the car. And so if I'm one of those types, not me personally, but if I'm one of those types that just doesn't give a damn, then I'm going to fight with the co unless he's my best friend. But then best friends go at it in fantasy leagues too. You've seen it. Maybe you have, not have. But the co will be just like everyone else. They'll be upset, after you, do the bad thing, whatever that is. It's not like I, as a commissioner, need to have the co next to me to turn the key that's kept around my neck. We're not shooting off nuclear missiles or anything. You know what I'm saying? My computer doesn't have dual access codes. So what was pro number 2? The co would be there as a backup just in case the commissioner. Oh, hold on. Technical. I'm the IT guy now. That's what happens when you have a one-man show. Okay. So pro number 2, the co would be there as a backup just in case the commissioner becomes available, right? Unavailable how? How? If you're the commissioner, you're available, right? You've made plans. Football season doesn't sneak up on you. It's not like, you're lying in a field looking at clouds and then you get a text from the league members because you've been lying in a field for 5 months and they're like, where the hell are you? No, that's not going to happen, right? So barring some serious physical injury, and I mean that seriously, I'm not being sarcastic. We don't wish that on anyone, but you can monitor the league, especially now. Today, you can go anywhere and monitor the league. Hell, if we were taking shuttles to the moon on weekends, you could still monitor the league and do what you need to do without any help from some backup. I ask you, what do you need a backup for? And what is happening that won't allow you to perform your double clicks? I don't know. Email me, tell me. So the bigger question is, what do you as commissioner do to negate the need for having a co? You don't need checks and balances. This isn't the government. This is a fantasy football league. The same rules apply. Communication, transparency. That is how you gain trust without people asking for you to be monitored. It wasn't always like that in the league that I run, but when I changed the rule that no one except the commissioner had the means to overrule a trade, when we moved to that, someone in the league actually did ask me, well, who's going to rule on your trade? And I was like, no one, in the sense that no one could overturn my trade like another commissioner, but as commissioner, I'm held to a higher standard. I know everyone is watching. I know that. And they should. Now, I would be crazy to do something underhanded. Now, I can hear the I can hear the voices. Well, I know someone in my league. He was commissioner and he swapped players and okay. I get that. But now I'm talking about my own personal league with members of my league. I felt that I had earned the trust of the league to do the right thing by them, and with whatever it was that I happened to do, especially since I've been doing it forever. There was a track record. I had a track record. I had established that. And I want the league to continue. This is the most important point. And this is something to consider. And this is what makes the difference between homegrown leagues and I specifically talk about office leagues because those are a different beast altogether. Just crazy things happen, and there's whack politics going on in offices anyway before you even introduce a game that you might be playing for money. That just turns, that just makes everyone into mutants. It gets crazy. But in regards to someone who, started a league with the best of intentions, well, we want that league to continue. It's our league. And I'm not going to get involved with the semantics. Well, it's not your league. It's your league. I don't want to play in it. Okay, screw you. It's our league. We started the league. We didn't inherit the league. It didn't plop in our laps. We didn't come to, Anderson Insurance and they say, hey, you're the new guy. You have to run the league. That's not what happened. We started the league, so we have a vested interest, just like you. All you other fellow commissioners. We have a vested interest to make sure things go right. We want things to go smoothly. That's the job of the fantasy commissioner, to just have things go smoothly. No drama. Have everyone play the game. Let's have fun. And it's not the job of every commissioner to run their league into the ground. That's not our job. That's not like, yes, I'm the commissioner. I cannot wait to alienate everyone in the league and destroy it. I personally have a greater vested interest than anyone else. I guarantee you, I have a greater vested interest than anyone else to do the right thing in Cara Paravel because I started the league. I have a greater allegiance to it going on and on and on and on because I put in a lot of work and I like the people in it. And we work well together and we have fun. And when you find that as a commissioner, you don't want to ruin that. So in the early years, you're going to have some growing pains. You're going to have someone going, well, how'd I know you didn't cheat? Oh, yeah, you just happened to be first in the waiver wire. Yeah, you're going to get that. And it takes time to find that happy medium. And unfortunately, some leagues never do, but all right. But if you're in an office league, and you got someone, he knows he's leaving. He's transferring to Topeka, Kansas, and he's going to be working someplace else. So, you know what? He doesn't give a crap if he does a bad job and pisses everyone off and takes his money and leaves or doesn't pay his pool money and all that stuff. But what about me or you? And by you, I mean the commission who started their own league and they actually care. You would not do anything to destroy your league. And if anyone believes that, then maybe they need to go somewhere else if they're going to create issues with you all the time. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for you, the good yous of us, to sabotage our own league just to win. Because if you sabotage your own league just to win, then everyone gets pissed off and they leave. Then you don't have a league. It's not that complicated. So what if you're new, right? You asking, what if I feel like I need help? Then you ask for advice, but you still do not share power. And I know that sounds so authoritative. Yep, it does. Fine. So call it authoritative or whatever word you want, but if you're the commissioner, you have a job to do. You have responsibilities that you don't get to share by the very definition of the role. Commish, I hate ties. This week I was involved in a tie. There was another tie between two other teams a couple of weeks ago. I know this happens sometimes, but it's the first time this happened in my league. This is our second year. We're a head-to-head scoring league, and I like the idea of our weekly players and our final champ winning outright. I'm going to propose that we have tiebreakers next year. Any suggestions? Yes. Take a look at your scoring settings and see if you have the option of choosing fractional scoring or fractional points. If you do, then you're set. That should be the end of your ties. Should be. Fractional points prevent the number of ties, and they stop driving you crazy. With fractional scoring, you don't have to wait for a player to reach a yardstone mileage before they start producing points. So, for example, with standard scoring, if a player gets a point for every 15 yards, you have to wait for that player to gain their first 15 yards before you're awarded your first point. You don't receive another point until your player gains another 15 yards. Additional scoring continues in this manner. And any yardage your player gains between each 15-yard milestone does not produce any points. Period. Ding. With fractional scoring, your player will register points between milestones. So in other words, they are rewarded for all the yards that they gain, starting with the very first yard. So if the platform you're using doesn't offer fractional scoring, you should find one that does. Your league is only 2 years old, so move now while you have fewer traditions to disrupt. You don't have any grizzled veterans in your league to disgruntle as far as how many years they've spent in your league. Yahoo offers fractional scoring. So the odds that you'll have a tie with fractional points, they're very low. I mean, that doesn't mean it can't happen, but so, write some rules down so in case a tie occurs, you don't have to come up with a crazy tiebreaker yourself, like who can chug a beer the quickest or something like that. Yahoo has its own set of tiebreakers, so there's no extra work or calculations required on your part. So this will keep you from personally getting involved in any potential disputes. Commish, I was just offered cash to make a fantasy trade as the commissioner. Do I rule on the legality, or do I put it to a vote? No, you shouldn't accept cash. Either as the commissioner of your league or as an individual owner. Real cash should not be used to influence trades. I'm not talking about waiver fees. I'm talking about a direct exchange of money, in your case, that goes directly to another owner, not fees that go towards the prize pool. Because if you allow such activities to happen, to exist, they could trigger all kinds of slippery, slopish complications for your league. I can just throw around money and I can pay someone not to do a trade. Right? Because the person I'm going to play next week will get, Antonio Brown. I don't want to have Antonio Brown, so I'll pay you to not make the trade. So if your league uses fab money, consider making a rule change next year that gives owners the option to use fab money in trade deals. Now, I apologize to new owners. I'll get into what fab money is on another podcast, but I just thought this was another good thing to throw out there on the very first show to have people consider. So consider making a rule change to use fab money. And the league doesn't get to vote on the legality of the request. Not, just decline the offer. This is an older question. So I would encourage you to send a letter to the league discouraging such behavior. So make sure you add language for any official rules or sanctions involving such behavior. For example, commissioner reversing trades. Just make sure everything is in writing, and that's one of the things we will talk about next week. So for you new guys who are still coming up with the rules, just get that pen and paper. Yes, I said pen and paper. You can use your tablet if you want, but I'm old school. Get that pen and paper. Write it down. So decide how you want to handle it. Decide what the specifics are, how, severe you want to be, your disciplinary actions, that's up to you. In reality, at the end of the day, if people really want to do it, there's nothing to do about it. They just keep it on the down low. But at least as commissioner, you can try and make an appeal to, everyone's sense of honor. And then, what's going to happen is going to happen. Okay, let me pull up a short one because I'm running out of time here. So let me see if I can get a short one in here. All right. Okay. New commissioners. Hopefully you will not experience this, but take a listen. Dear Commish, a bunch of members in our league spend a lot of time posting their complaints and taking shots at me on the message board. I try to respectfully respond, but it's like getting ganged up on. LOL! Exclamation point. It's like a cage match sometimes. Is there a better way to deal with this sort of thing? I just realized. See, this is live podcasting, but guys, the UFC prelims. No, that's tomorrow. All right, I got distracted. It's crazy. Is there a better way to deal with this sort of thing? I don't want to ignore people because then it looks like I don't care. But it's getting to the point where I kind of don't care anymore. I actually don't. I've been spending way too much time on the boards. And honestly, I think some people just like to complain and join in because they can. Yup. That's the official response. Yup, they will. Look, don't get involved in message board rants. No matter how much you would like to respond, don't do it, Robert Blake. Deal with complaints individually first through emails. Your activities on the message board, let them involve things like congratulatory messages, posting new scoring records, reminders of deadlines, even a little friendly smack talk. But if you think the friendly smack talk will turn into ugly smack talk, then you can kind of negate that, pull that one out. But that's really about it, guys. There should never be any back and forth disputes between you and any member of the league in public view on the board. I mean, they're just folks who like to create drama. And the message board is the perfect place for them to perform. They love the attention, right? That's why you don't respond and you take that option away from them. If they really have earnest concerns, honest concerns, they should be willing to discuss it with you via email, right? So you might want to take away the opportunity for those people who would be quick to join in on the message board, because lots of times people will join in when they wouldn't say anything individually. So you kind of, take away that herd mentality or the mob mentality. We'll call it that. So divide and conquer. Because often things, hopefully, they'll get settled after a couple email exchanges. I mean, things tend to drag on longer if the drama sponges, if they get to show off and they get to show off their witty remarks and all that, it can go on a little bit longer. So now, if you decide to talk face to face on the phone, just always respond by email first, then follow up in person or by phone call. But no one talks on the phone anymore, right? This young generation. Yes, I am not of this generation. No one wants to talk on the phone anymore. That's the way to go, people. That's the way to go, young people. Anyway. But whatever you do, email first. So your position on the subject is a matter of record. That's how you can protect yourself from the classic, he said, well, she said, and scenario. That nonsense. Also, you have a point to make to several people who, you would otherwise be going back and forth with on the board. Try sending out a global message to the league. That way, you're taking the high road, and you're not engaging in a direct conflict with any one party. You're just sending out helpful reminders and friendly suggestions. Okay? That does it. So now, in the future podcasts, I will go into things more into detail. Trust me, I believe in specificity, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of things. So we will spin. So I just think I went through maybe, 4 or 5 questions. We won't do that normally. We'll go through maybe 1 or 2, and I will really get into it and hash it out. And when we do have people in the room, they'll ask questions, and it just becomes an organic discussion. And that's always a wonderful thing. So I'm back. Hopefully you're back. And thanks for listening, folks. And I hope you stick around and make this a part of your fantasy routine each week. Remember, follow me on Twitter at MrReginaldJames. My email is thecommiss@outlook.com. This is the Fantasy Commissioner Show. I'm Reginald James. Until next time, see ya!